Welcome to the Let's Talk About Talking podcast with your host, Adrienne Fuller, language and communications expert for kids of all ages. On this podcast, we talk about speech, language, and all things happening with your child, giving you specific tactical information you can use to help your kids talk, listen, and thrive in their academic journey.
Awesome. Well, welcome you guys. Today is Wednesday. Oh, see, I did it again. Today is Tuesday and it is January 25th, 2022. And it's welcome to Nap Time Chat Time. Now, this is a time that for parents or caregivers or foster parents or grandparents to talk about their child's development, language, speech, academics, all while your child is napping. Now, just a few weeks ago, we had Jennifer Kahn on, and she was talking about homeschooling. Go back and watch that or listen to that. It was awesome. But she always says, even though her children don't nap anymore, during this time, she has them have a quiet time. And so I highly recommend that you do that. You don't have to go to sleep. Some people I don't remember when I stopped napping. I nap now. Any chance I get, I like to nap. But if your child doesn't want to nap, feel free to have them be in their room and be quiet. You can play, you can think, you can play make-believe, you can imagine. But this is a time that mommy or daddy needs for their quiet time. And I think it's good because it also shows some boundaries. And I'm working on that myself and just setting those boundaries with people and even your kids. Set boundaries with your kids because they appreciate it. And when they're adults, they'll model it too. So I just want to let you know that it is January. So coming up shortly, I'd like to start talking about school options and things to look for in a school. That came to me the other day. If you have any topics that you'd like to talk about or you'd like me to talk about or have a guest on, please leave them in the comments because I always am curious about what people want to hear. I love working with parents, and my thing is, when I was in the schools, I was a teacher in the beginning. I've also worked in the schools as an SLP, as a speech language pathologist. And I find that a lot of times we talk to parents and not with them. Like we talk at parents, but we don't really talk to them. We spew a lot of acronyms. We spew a lot of language that only we can understand. So my thing is on these lives and I'm wanting to turn this into a podcast. I want it to be something that parents can use as a resource. And so I did want to talk about my new book. It's called 30 Days to Get Your Toddler Talking. I'm so very proud of this book. I always say it is not it's not a big read. It's not long, but it's not meant to be long. It covers the basics of what speech and language is, also what your child should be doing, and and then we get a baseline. I give you a little pre-test you can give your child, and then I give you a step-by-step 30-day program of using toys you have in your home or you can easily get and that you can use with your child who is aged 18 months to 36 months or 3 years old. For children who are not talking or talking very, very little, and I've gotten great reviews. People love it. So it's great for that. And please use it as a resource. It's available on the Amazon. It's also available in my bio on Linktree. And so, yes, I think it's a great gift. Great gift too. If there are any speech therapists watching this, you have any SLPAs or a really new grad who is not really quite comfortable with that small age yet, this is also a great book because it just breaks it down, the things you can do and with your child. So I am so very, very excited today. Now, you see I have my sweater on. I'm coming to you from Orlando, Florida, the Central Florida area, and it is very cold today. And so I'm so happy for that. And I'm waiting for our guests to come. I am so excited to have Landria Green join us today for our nap time chat time. Now, she is she's in a very exclusive club because she is dually certified as an SLP and a BCBA, which is a behavior therapist. So that's like the power punch in the world of in the therapy field. If you're an SLP, a speech language pathologist, and you are also a behavior person, I just feel like that is a power punch. So she's going to be joining us today, and we're going to unwrap, and I want her to really answer the question, hey, Yvette, oh my goodness, all my friends are here. It means so much when people come. Hi, cousin Sylvia. Oh, everyone's on. I love it. I love now that people are coming to this, but it's always, today I want Landria to really unpack what behavior therapy is, because I don't know if you've heard, but there has been a ruckus and there's a little bit of controversy surrounding behavior therapy. And so, while she's getting on, let me talk about behavior therapy. So from what I understand, many times, for many reasons, we find that in our clinic, it's necessary for us to refer out to a behavior therapist. So first, parents, let me just go ahead and say, if you've had that referral, or if a professional has recommended that you get behavior therapy for your child, they are in no way saying that you are a bad parent or that your child is a bad child. They are simply saying that we need another person to help with things like transition. So if my child is having difficulty getting from the car through the door at school, or from the classroom and out of the door, or on the bus, that's what we call a difficulty with transition. And so that we will often call a behavior therapist in to consult and to get that kind of, I don't want to say under control, but to get that skill mastered. Because I always say without communication, without cooperation, I can't increase communication. And so if there's behaviors that are in the way, so behavior as in I asked him to do it and he just refuses. When your child is 2 and when your child's a toddler, oftentimes you're going to get that, because children that are 2 and 3 are beginning to discover their independence, and they're beginning to discover that the word no, and sometimes that's a little difficult for us to understand. So if that is the case, that may not be a behavior issue, but for parents who have that issue, I mean, everything seems to be an issue or a fight or a struggle. That might be a sign that it's time to look for outside help. Now, what I find often is that behavior therapists will often do parent training. And so, like I said, it's not in any way possible anything saying, hey, we think your child is bad. I hate that word, bad, or we think you're not a good parent. But there is no manual when it comes to being a parent. And so oftentimes we've done what we've seen our parents do, and we do other things. Not that it's wrong, but sometimes there's always a better way. And so let that behavior therapist coach you in that. So are there any questions hello, Margaret. Are there any questions while we're waiting for our special guest to arrive? I'm going to just hang out here for 1 second and see if there are any questions. All righty. So as I'm looking through my book here, I am going to talk about some of the toys that we use in our book, 30 Days to Get Your Toddler Talking. And let's talk about some of the toys that we use. Some of my favorites are balls, book, bubbles, and those are really, really great toys that we use. All right. Well, it looks like our special guest is here. I'm going to let her on. Hold on one second. All right. So I am going now, guys. You know this is semi new to me. So I see my guest is here. Can you push request for me? Now all right. All right, so let me talk about Miss Green. So Landria, as I said, is one of like few, and there's only 500 dually certified BCBAs and SLPs in the whole world. I think that is so amazing, and we'll have to talk about that at a different time because Landria, for a minute, I really wanted to do that, but I found out I had to get another master's degree, and I said, well, that's what I was told, and so I was like, Now, me personally, I am done with school. I've gotten everything. I love learning. I'll take a class anytime, but getting any more degrees, I think I'm done with that. But so hats off to you for doing that. But guys, I don't know if you know, but she also owned a multidisciplinary clinic that was actually sold in 2020. And now she consults parents and other clinical professions, and as she's working on her PhD in special education. Welcome, Landry. I'm so glad to have you.
Well, it's so nice to actually speak with you, right? I follow you on Instagram and all that good stuff. So congratulations to you.
I have been Oh, thank you. I've been a huge fan for a very long time. And I'm even more of a fan because I totally spaced on the time. And I think everyone's on my time zone. So I was like, oh, I'm it too. So thank you so much for coming early. Guys, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for the big league. Well, I am ready for the big leagues, but like, thank God this was a live TV. I was like, oh my gosh, she might be on a different time zone. So
no. It was in my calendar. It was in my calendar for Central Time. Okay, and cool. And then I spaced out. Like, I moved from Eastern time zone to Central, and I still think of myself as EST. So, yeah.
Well, but yeah, I actually grew up in Tennessee, and that Central time zone, and I actually really like being on that Central time zone. I can watch all my shows and still go to bed by 10 o'clock. So, use that as a point of reference. Like, hey, at least I can watch all my shows.
Right. That's good. That's very good. That's very good.
Well, and Landria, I really just wanted to talk about behavior therapy recently, because in our clinic, we recommend all the time for parents to see a behavior therapist if we feel like the behavior is getting in the way of progress of getting those communication goals met. And so sometimes I feel like, hey, let's go ahead and tackle this part, and then if it's like very severe. But recently, well, first let's just talk about can you tell everyone out there what behavior therapy is? But then can you also say what it's not?
Good question. So I am a board certified behavior analyst, and we go through a different level of training that is similar to a speech pathologist, actually. So most BCBAs will also have a master's degree. We would just have a specialization in applied behavior analysis, which is a theory. So, hey, and so just to add, so we think of behavior as anything a living being can do. So if a living being can learn, if they can speak, do activities of daily living, social interaction, all of that goes under the auspices of behavior, what it means to of human behavior. But when we think about children, specifically children with autism, we can work on and shape, because we do it through the theory of shaping. We can work on identified behavior that is challenging, that we want to reduce, behavior that we want to ramp up. So kids who are just not interacting well enough yet, or they're not communicating enough, we can ramp those behaviors up as well. So thinking of a BCBA alone, should we tackle those in a lane all by ourselves when it comes to language and speech and communication? The answer is that's a great opportunity for collaboration with our specialist background, and then another individual, another profession that is even more specialized. Our perspective is in behavior is to do things like adding momentum, behavior momentum, being able to analyze data quickly in order to affect the behavior change, the change in the behavior that we want to see. So some other professions may not analyze behavior, may not analyze human behavior at the level of specificity and the rate that we do. And I think that's a big distinction between what it means to do ABA and what it means to do speech therapy, or even OT. For so what it is not is tackling all of the hard stuff. So it's not tackling kids who don't sit and we try to make them sit. That's not what behavior therapy is. That's not the focus of good therapy across domains.
Anywhere. True.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere, especially when it comes to, I was about to say little ones, but especially when it comes to anyone. So what it is not is tackling only the hard stuff. It is within our profession, we also do something called parent, some people call it parent training. I, along with other people, prefer parent coaching.
I like that better.
So
it sounds better.
It sounds better. It sounds like
I want to be coached. Dogs.
Don't you want to be coached?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do parent coaching to help people. Good parent coaching is meeting people where they are and improving the impact of therapy outside of us. So if Johnny can do it with me, hurrah. But if he can do it at home, then, that is the good impact and imprint of therapy. So that's what behavior of ABA therapy can do. Work with kids with ADHD, kids who have learning challenges, and their ability to have fluency. We do that category naming in the speech world. And so we would build fluency, and working with kids and fluency training.
Okay, well, because this well, this is for everyone, but
Yeah.
this whole live. But my thing is like, what's too young for behavior therapy? Or and am I calling it what we should call it, behavior therapy? Or do you guys prefer something else?
Let's call it ABA therapy. Let's call it ABA. Because
Okay,
that is,
let's call it ABA.
let's call it ABA. And how young is too young? Well, if you have a diagnosis of autism, let's do that. Because that is what it's most popularly known for. If you have a diagnosis of autism, what we do in behavior in ABA should look different. When you have an 18-month-old, you should be working on play. There should be no table. We should be working on interaction skills and relational skills. So as young as 18 months, we see children, because we see them that young for speech too, right?
Yes, we do. I mean, we've seen 9-month-olds. We've seen
9-month-olds,
kids that are a year old. Absolutely.
Yeah. So working on play and interaction and communication and reciprocity and helping parents use different tools and techniques to build that communication interaction is something that we would, and play skills is something that we would work on as young as 18 months.
Okay. Could you go ahead and explain for all of our listeners what reciprocity is?
Okay, here we are. So what is reciprocity? The back and forth exchange. So in a nutshell, it's back and forth exchange, giving and getting. We want all of our relationships to be reciprocal, but but when you
that's a whole different life, isn't it?
It is, but in real life, it's never going to be 50-50.
Correct.
So when learners have a diagnosis, the person or the people who are usually doing the heavy lifting as we increase skill set is usually the parent and the practitioner or clinician. And our job is to build that skill set and enhance it in the individual in front of us so that there is more equal, there's more balance in the reciprocal and the reciprocity of the exchange between the two or more people.
Okay, awesome. So if a parent hears we believe as whoever, the teacher, the preschool, whoever says it, the speech therapist, the OT, that your child needs ABA, can you tell us what an eval might look like for a toddler or anyone?
Okay,
what the process looks like?
So I'm going to take us a step back and give us a tale of two cities. So the tale of the two cities, the one is we think your child may be experiencing some delays. And I would say the first step for any parent would be to seek out a developmental pediatrician. And a developmental pediatrician is good just to have on your child's team. And having that person on your child's team, regardless of diagnosis, they can help track them and have your 6-month track. So that visit, go ahead.
Just one thing, I just want to highlight what she says, guys. Your team. It doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket, if you have Medicaid, whatever payer source you have, your child deserves a team. And if your child is experiencing delays, a developmental pediatrician is one of those vital team members. Thank you for saying that. I love that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And this is outside of your pediatrician. So just to be clear, those are two different people.
Two different people.
Those are two different people.
Because your pediatrician sees many, many kids all day long. So many times your pediatrician is going to say, wait, or, okay, let's write a referral if you really press them on it. But yeah, a developmental pediatrician is very different.
Yeah, yeah. And, and there may be an occasion where the developmental pediatrician says, it does an evaluation and says, we have a diagnosis of autism. And
Mhm.
if that is the case, one of the more proven treatments is applied behavior analysis therapy. And therein lies your referral. And then you would see a board certified behavior analyst, a BCBA, and that person or persons would conduct an ABA assessment. And that is for assessing the skill sets in different in different domains. So cognitive skills, communication, daily living, language, and we have tests that would address all of those or assess all of those within that sitting. And then from there, we would create a plan. And the treatment plan would be in those different areas. If your child has autism, then the likelihood of insurance paying for ABA therapy is greater if there is a diagnosis. And that's, it's policy specific, but generally speaking, the likelihood is greater. They would also recommend speech therapy. They would also recommend occupational therapy, but ABA is going to take up the bulk of your time because the recommendations are typically for treatment can be a full program or a comprehensive program. And the range in thinking of those two programs would be 15 to 40 hours per week. And that may be off-putting to many families and many practitioners. So there is data to show and suggest the kind of hours that should be that are recommended based upon the profile and need of your child. But usually other therapies can be scheduled around it, or the other therapies become primary and ABA is scheduled around it. There's no wrong answer here. Let me be clear. But ABA is going to give a larger amount of time, and families have to figure out how it works. You really want good collaboration between your specialists because they need to be able to talk outside of you as a parent, because we need to plan and be on the same page. And so a good collaborative team looks like people talking and parents not having to do the heavy lifting of carrying information from one practitioner or clinic to the next.
You have just described the utopia of therapies, but that is that is exactly what it should look like. And I'm not going to even touch the collaborative piece because for me, I think that's all we ever want.
Yeah.
And sometimes, for whatever reason, it gets in the way. But yes, building a team that is able to collaborate, as she said, is actually key. So if a parent and child, if a child says or has been assigned or granted, I guess, approved for the 40 hours, what can a parent expect that to look like? Everyone is different. She's giving a snapshot of her experience, everyone.
Well, so it could be from 15 to 40 hours per week, and I'm going to give the optimal snapshot. So what it should look like is a schedule, and starting off with most times starting off with parent coaching to give an orientation that is specific to what therapy looks like at that place that you're getting services from. And so parent education, training, and coaching, parent education and training would start before we go into a model of parent coaching. Mm-hmm. So the education and training would be the orientation to what does therapy look like here? What are the expectations? How do you set up your home if it's a home-based program or a clinic-based program? So even in orientation to some centers have what is called a family handbook. You know, how do you communicate if you don't like your therapist? And that can happen at any occasion. Or so that's the education and training first. And then the parent coaching can be, you know, based upon what your goals are. If you have a goal for potty training or toileting, if you have a goal for, I want him or him to stop throwing his bottle when he wants to drink, and I want my children to interact better with their sibling who has autism. Those are real goals, and that can be worked on in ABA. So you have your parent goals that are measurable, and we should be taking data on those because we have to track progress. And then you have the one-to-one therapy where we are working on things like identifying objects and nouns. We are working on social skills and being able to have statement to statement conversations. We're working on following directions, multi-step. And you say, well, what is this? You know, my child does that in speech. Yes, they do, except we're seeing them 15 to 40 hours a week. So, and we're thinking about behavior change and behavior change procedures and what type of learning style, if you will, do I need to have as a clinician in order to help your child learn? So that's what the data's for. That's the data's for, saying, how well is he learning? But what do I need to adjust? Do I need to adjust how I prompt? Do I need to adjust? And so looking at trends across 3 sessions, a few sessions versus, you know, several weeks or months ahead or along, is probably one of the other. Did you hear me, or am I fading out?
You know, yeah, you froze.
Oh, what part did I freeze?
That very last part, it's one of the other
things that distinguish us from other one-to-one types of therapy.
What if a parent says, I just want the coaching piece? Is that ever an option?
Yeah, I do that. Yeah, so it is an option. I know people who that's all that they do. I know some BCBAs that work on just feeding. So some people have their specialty, and you know, and let me say this: the people who have those specialties, particularly in areas of feeding, our code of ethics mandates, tells us that if this is not your area, your original area of scope, then you get mentorship, clinical mentorship in that area, and you get additional training in that area as well. So, yeah.
If a parent is on the fence, they're not sure whether to do it or not, what would you like to move forward with an evaluation? I'm always of the school of thought that says, hey, we're not going to wait and see. We're just going to see, because we want the information so we know how to move forward. But what would you tell a parent who's like very resistant, or they're on the fence about getting ABA for their child?
Well, I usually take a different approach, and I try to understand. I try to help get a parent to articulate where the apprehension is coming from. So, is it coming from something you read? And if that's so, let's unpack that. If it's coming from you not wanting to accept a diagnosis, you don't have to accept a diagnosis, but sometimes the diagnosis will require that you act as you accept. And so being able to hold the complexity of what it means to be human as you parent, and as now you parent a child who has a diagnosis. And so I try to understand the root cause of why there is the apprehension towards behavior therapy. But beyond that, No, well, not beyond that, but along with that, there is real literature that supports the ability, ABA as a good answer, a real answer with solutions towards the bridge between what we want to see and what we see right now. And ABA is a good bridge, main bridge for developing skill set.
I know I did not want to go long, but before we go,
okay,
can you quickly, and if we need to do this another time, that's fine. Recently, my fellow brothers and sisters who have been diagnosed on the spectrum have come forward and said, hey, you know, ABA was very traumatic for me, or I don't think ABA works, or we shouldn't do it anymore. I don't know that that's the answer. Could you just speak on that? Just because I don't want to eliminate a whole profession, because does that make sense? I don't even know how to ask the question, but can you speak on that a little?
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, there have been experiences where people have not benefited from the therapy, and for some people, they have walked away with accounts of trauma. And not discounting that at all, I do think there are instances of bad apples across any profession. Any profession. So but separating the impact of a theory and the applied work of a theory from the accounts of working with people is a space that maybe not everyone has grown to. And so as a practitioner, I will leave room for that growth, because it is a growth. But for a parent who is trying to figure things out, so I grew up with a father who would say things, or a parent who would say, then what's your solution? Like, what's your solution then? So if something is bad, then you've got to provide people with good alternatives that are commensurate, that are just as impactful. And, it is okay to say that something is bad, but my goodness, for the parent whose child does not yet communicate well, who has behavior that is severe, and that family can't go to a restaurant or go to a birthday party or be around, and don't feel comfortable yet being around other family members because of what they are experiencing in the four walls of their home. It is a bold statement to supply that something is bad and make people feel as if they are doing a bad thing for their own children. So just as everything in life, we think about things from an individual perspective. So let's start using the pronouns, using personal pronouns. ABA was not good for me versus ABA is not good. And so that is the, and as practitioners and as a field, we just need to do a better job at disseminating in the way that is that people who are on the other side can hear and listen. So nobody wants our theory, but as simple as, if it was bad for you, then let it be bad for you. But don't tell anyone else that they should do something that is of benefit to them. And there's references and resources that
Great answer. I appreciate that, because I never want to, I'll leave it at great answer. I have, this has been so eye-opening for me, and I do want to circle back and say Landria Green is a board certified behavior analyst. For me, when people call me a speech teacher, it just, so if I called you the equivalent of that when I called you a behavior therapist, I apologize, because
no, it's fine. It's fine. It really is okay.
Okay, though, are those terms used interchangeably?
They are used interchangeably, but as a person who is certified, I am called to use them differently, but I accept them all.
Look at that. I love it. You are a joy. You are such a gem. You guys, she does consult. And so please get on her link tree. It's Landria Green Speech Guru. Is that your
I think
ID
that's
now?
me. They can DM me here. And if you find me here, you can always send me a message. I answer them. Then I'll probably, direct you to an email, but my email, Landria@slpaba.com is my email.
Awesome. You guys use her as a resource. I feel like I've not ever heard behavior therapy, ABA explained in this way, and it's such a way that people can understand. And so please take advantage of all her resources on her website. Thank you very much for joining us today, Landria. Thank you so much for joining me. Guys, have a wonderful, wonderful day. We'll see you next week right here, and have a great, great day.
Thank you. Bye.
You've been listening to the Let's Talk About Talking podcast with your host, Adrienne Fuller, language and communications expert for kids of all ages. You can grab Adrienne's book, 30 Days to Get Your Toddler Talking, on Amazon or at speechbuilders.org.